Hi there. My name's Laurelann Porter. I'm a shamanic artist, and I'm here to share with you the wisdom teachings that I have received from an archetypal figure that I call the widow bride. And this particular figure came to me as a message from the birds. So one of the times that I was living in Bahia, Brazil, I go to Brazil quite frequently. I spend quite a bit of time there. I consider it almost more of a home than my actual native-born home. But there's this little bird that had been sort of following me around. Not that there was just one particular bird, but this was a bird that I just kept seeing everywhere. And it was this little black and white bird, and it had, I think, mostly a white front and black wings, and then it had this little black mask right across its face. And I got so curious about this bird, and so I just looked up what are black and white birds in the state of Bahia, in this region, and found one finally that looked like the one I had been seeing. And apparently, this bird has a few names, and one of them is widow bride, viúva noivinha. Viúva noivinha literally translates as widow bride. She also has another name, lavadeira mascarada, which means masked laundress. And so the lore says that this was the bird who wiped Mary's tears away, and so it is a sin to hunt her down. And this would have been probably roughly June of 2022, and I was preparing to enter my first ayahuasca ceremony. And I was just, spending the day in meditation and dialoguing with the other people who were about to be on that journey. And I suddenly realized that the message this little bird was giving me was that every wedding day should actually also be considered a funeral as well. Because if we don't mourn for the previous version of ourself, for the single version of ourself, then we can't really fully, truly step into our new self, our partnered version. So it's important that we don't skip that step because we don't want to let years of bitterness accrue. So the widow bride invites us to mourn for the past, grieve for the previous version of yourself so that you can step confidently into your glorious new self. So I want to kind of open with an excerpt from a song that came to me, which helps illustrate this. Every wedding day is a funeral day too. You've got to mourn the old you to make space for the new you. It's best for you to mourn while she's still fresh in your mind than to wait until you're bitter from what you lost over time. And the song goes on. It's a song in progress, but I just wanted to open with that song. It's something that my ancestors are always encouraging me to do. Don't forget to sing, because singing is part of how we communicate sacredly, I believe. So the key to the archetype of the widow bride is basically 4 components. The first component is to learn how to grieve for your former self. And so I have another class that I have called Creative Grieving. And in that class, I've broken down what I consider to be important steps in a creative grieving process to help you find more grace and ease as you move through your grief journey. And when we learn how to do that in any situation, not just for when we have lost a loved one, but when we learn how to use those same skills to be okay with loss. It helps us to really move a lot more fluidly through life with much more grace and ease. So the first thing you have to do is you have to identify the parts of you that you've lost. The parts of you that maybe, oh, I used to be this way, or you used to be that way, or I miss when I was this way. And this is all part of releasing the past. And I want to also just sort of say that any of you who are considering embarking on a deep healing journey, for us, we call it entering the medicine wheel. When you're entering the medicine wheel, the very first thing you have to do is you have to release the past. And so the widow bride, for me, helps us with, it sounds so easy, release the past, but there are many parts to it. But this is something I would highly recommend you engage with if you are considering doing any kind of a deep dive on a shamanic training or training as a healer of some other sort, anybody who's working with energy, light workers, things like that. So this can really help you to clear whatever is some of these old wounds that are not helping us anymore. The other thing that this creative grieving process does for us is it allows us to grieve consciously and creatively, so that we don't have to feel like we're such a victim to circumstances all the time, that we can look at it and we can say, I am looking at my former self with love and compassion, and I don't have to be that anymore, but I can just send love to that previous version of myself. And the other thing that it helps you do is to develop creative practices in writing, drawing, music, whatever you feel called to do. Any of those creative juices can be helpful for any healing practice at all. So the 5 steps that I talk about in creative grieving are to create something, even if you think you can't, even if it's just a note of some sort, or just move, just dance. Step 2 is to release. And there are many ways to release. In our shamanic energy medicine practice, we have cord cutting ceremonies that can be really effective. There are also forgiveness practices. And boy, I have found that forgiveness practices can be some of the deepest and most lasting healing in our lives. The next part of grieving creatively is going to be to honor. And when I say honor, it can come in a variety of ways. If you want to honor the person you lost, that's great. But if the person you lost or the person you were is maybe complicated and maybe is not something you're proud of, or maybe you have ambiguous feelings about it, honor the experience of what it was like to be that person or to know that person. So express that in ritual and express gratitude for what you gained from that experience. And then, of course, another step, learning the lessons. This is sometimes the hardest thing in the whole world, is to really look at what pain we're facing and ask the pain, what are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to teach me? For me personally, my most recent deep healing experience that brought up some old wounds was to just tell myself, affirm for myself, that I forgive myself for not meeting my own expectations. And that also helps me to forgive others for not meeting my expectations. I think disappointment has been one of my key bitterness camps that I need to work on. And so hopefully all of us, when we learn to release and honor and learn the lessons, then we can get to what I call step 5, and that is to receive. To receive the blessings, to receive the gifts, to receive the wisdom. So all of that, those 5 steps, are part 1 of the Widow Bride workshop. So learning how to grieve creatively is the first step in the Widow Bride's wisdom that she gives us. So the next step is to decolonize your mind. And what this has to do with is understanding, identifying the sources of what scripted behaviors you have in your life, learning how to release the attachments to the people or situations that may have taught us those scripted behaviors, learning how to heal ancestral wounds that cause genetic karma, and sometimes we run into a wounding that we have no idea where it came from. It doesn't feel like it came from anywhere in this lifetime, and that probably means it's something a bit more ancient that is coming back to teach us a lesson. And then learning how to really carefully craft your own rites of passage to fulfill your own personal destiny. So we look at ancestrality, we look at your lineages, both your blood lineages as well as your intellectual lineages, because sometimes we learn things from people. They may not be our relatives, but they give us so much wisdom, we can consider them a kind of intellectual ancestor. And then I also like to talk a bit about syncretism, because syncretism is a phenomenon. It's a word that describes any of the processes whereby you have multiple religious belief systems that are kind of overlapping and intersecting. So, for example, I think a lot of people are familiar with Santeria in Latin America, or in Brazil we have Candomblé or Umbanda, or these are religions that they have kernels in them of both Catholicism and the ancient African religions. And so as a survival mechanism, people had to learn how to appear to be praying to the Catholic gods and saints while they were secretly, privately cultivating their own relationships with their own divine sacred practices that they had brought with them. And the reason I bring that up is because, here I am, a white woman who has learned these lineages and this wisdom from a people that are not my blood ancestors. They're not my blood relatives. And yet, where I learned this from Alberto Villoldo with the Four Winds Society, he makes it very clear that he was instructed by the people who trained him that right now on planet Earth, it is really important for this knowledge to be shared as widely as possible. And so when we're coming to this work from a Western perspective, there's a lot of decolonization that has to go on for us even to be able to get to the point where we can call in our highest destiny and our highest truth. So decolonizing your mind is another important step in the process of receiving the wisdom that the Widow Bride teaches us. Then in step 3 of the Widow Bride workshop, we have to listen to our dreams and face our shadow. And our dreams usually present our shadow images to us. And so when we learn how to tend our dreams, when we learn how to cultivate a relationship with those dream figures, to dialogue with those dream figures, it gives us the ability to see our world and our existence from multiple perspectives, and it gives us a lot stronger ability to not be triggered by people who might have aspects that we have kind of hidden in our shadows, to also face whatever are our old wounds so that we don't project them onto others. So facing your shadow and tapping into your dreams is a key component of releasing the past through this wisdom of the Widow Bride. And then the very last aspect of this work is what I would call the integration. Because this is a lot of transformation that's involved in this sort of 4-part process of the Widow Bride. So once you dig deep into those aspects of yourself, maybe they're hidden, maybe they are complicated and entangled with some belief systems that you don't know if you want to keep or not. So once you go through this process of decolonizing your mind, releasing the past, learning how to grieve creatively, then you can begin to really integrate these self aspects into your new mythic map. You get to call in your own destiny. You get to choose the pathway that you're going to walk. You get to decide how you're going to be in the world. So you access an internal compass that helps guide your thoughts and actions, helps you shape your behaviors into new ways. And the best part about that is you get to learn how to rewrite your own story. And for me, this has come up recently in a really potent way because one of my sort of higher aspirational goals that I have for myself, pardon me, is to just learn to be as compassionate and forgiving to all beings, myself included, as I possibly can. And part of that has to do with old habits of self-judgment that, I inherited from a variety of belief systems. And those are the kinds of things that take time and they take cycles to really fully release. So integration is that purposeful, conscious calling in of, what do you want to replace those old habits with? What do you want to replace those new beliefs with? How can you meaningfully call them into your new daily reality with your new life and your new version of yourself? So I want to just finish off by saying I would really love to support you on whatever your journey is. I do have some upcoming workshops that I'm going to be holding live for the Widow Brides. So if you're interested in doing a deep dive on this, please reach out. You can email me Laurelann at laurelannporter.com, and we'll put our links in the comments as well. And I also want to just encourage you to be gentle with yourself. If you are about to embark on any sort of really deep inner healing journey, you're probably going to want to make sure that you have a network of people on hand who can understand and support you when deep emotional wounds come up that need to be dealt with. Sometimes you might have, an emotionally volatile day while you're... Sorry about that audio glitch. I just wanted to follow up to reiterate how important it is that we have networks of care supporting us. So, for example, I wouldn't want any one person to be my only go-to person when I'm needing help. And so I have a network of shamans, healers, energy workers, Reiki masters, nutritionists. I have a whole variety of people I can turn to, including, my family, my partner, and whatever. And so this work does often bring up really old wounds. And I just can't urge you enough to just be compassionate with yourself, ask for support when you need it, let your folks know that you might be going through some emotionally turbulent times while you're working through some of these deep healing wounds. And please reach out if you need support. I'm happy to be here for you. I hope I get to see you in the deep dive of the Widow Bride workshop. Thanks a lot. See you soon.